Good afternoon. I'd like to call to order the Cabarrus County Board of Commissioners. I'd like to remind everybody that we are taping this budget work session. So if you have a cell phone that plays a lovely ringtone like mine, like the Carolina Fight song, if you will, make sure your cell phone is on silent or vibrate. If you also have a ringtone that's something like the Yellow Submarine, that'll work fine too. But we would like for you to silence it. In case you're wondering why I said both of those things, it's because I was challenged to find a way to get both Carolina and Yellow Submarine somehow in today's meeting. And now I've accomplished that. I'm not certain what I will win, but, you know, someone on the other end of the microphone will owe me big time now. So, start off with a little humor. We are happy to start off with Rowan Cabarrus Community College today to talk about your budget request. And welcome. It's always a pleasure to have you join us.
Okay, we're going to start. Ann and Parth are going to sort of introduce just to remind you guys what's in the budget, the proposed budget, and then we'll turn it over to Dr. Spalding to go from there.
All right. You saw this last night, but just to refresh you, what's currently in the budget for the community college is an increase of $43,000 in current expense to $1,932,829, $213,000 in for capital, and that's for an AC unit and some security enhancements, and then their debt service. And what we determined last night about the reason the debt service went up was because in the original issue of the bonds, the principal was scheduled to go up in 14 by $700,000, and the interest decreased, but not more than $700,000 increase in the principal. So that's why their debt service increased $28,000 to $230,569.
Is that all you got there?
Well, the other thing we might have mentioned is this current year, they received $919,608 in one-time capital funds. And so when you look at the screen and it shows a decrease of $1.1 million, that's because of that one-time $919.
All right. Well, thank you very much. We appreciate being with you. We're doing a little PowerPoint for our 50th anniversary to remind you what we do, not that you don't know. But at the recent dedication of the Veterans Memorial, which I saw Steve there and several of you, one of the school board members came up to me and didn't know we had a nursing program at the college. So I thought, okay, maybe we assume too much, so we'll do a little bit of a review here. So if I can give you the sign, okay. Our mission, for example, to improve lives and build community through public higher education and workforce development. We're the only public higher education in the county. The others are private schools, and we really are focused on our workforce development. I think that's really key. It's a very important part of our mission with the unemployment the way it is and our job training. So that's a part of our mission. Our vision is building sustainable futures through the power of learning. The key there is that we want to help people find careers that are sustainable, that are not dead-end jobs, and that the power of learning is really critical for economic development. So we'll move on then. Just to remind you, there's one campus in North Campus in Salisbury. That's it on the left. The rest of these edifices are all in Cabarrus County, which you support, most of them which you support. On the right is our Cloverleaf Center, which has 3 storefronts. That's where our cosmetology program is, our aesthetics, our EMT, our certified nursing assistants. There's over 300 FTE, full-time equivalent students there. It is funded as a campus in the state of North Carolina, relatively newly funded. At the bottom left is our Cabarrus Business and Technical Center, which was an old school board, old high school, and I think the college got it in 2004. And that is where a lot of our very high-end IT is, and where we are moving some electrical and electronics programs to go with our HVAC and our solar program. And so you'll see this particular building have a new infusion of programs between now and January. On the bottom right is the first building of the campus, the 3 buildings there together, and that one is slated for a whole rework of that floor as you walk in, called a one-stop center. We've changed that name to Navigation Station with our new logo with the compass on it. This will be a place for students to come in and have all of their needs met without running all over campus. It'll be high-tech, and testing will be there, counseling will be there. Any student who has a need knows where to go, and so that'll be the focus of their beginning, our orientations, our placement testing, and all of that. So that'll have a new infusion of cash and a better facility. We're currently leasing the old visitor center, an old movie theater in Kannapolis for our R3 center, which is a place for unemployed workers to come and get job skills, resume writing, other kinds of employment help. It's also a way into the college. We feel like that's an easier place to get started in the college because sometimes the college is scary. And so we have that as a great place, and they're doing a bang-up job, as they have for a number of years, working with the unemployed and doing skills. You see it in the paper all the time. We moved our small business program into the research campus building. I hope you all have been there. That building is totally state-supported and will be for the next 18 years. And that's where we have moved both nursing programs, one from North Campus, one from South Campus. That's doing very well. 100% of our graduates passed the test there, the nursing test, which is really a distinction. Our biotechnology program is doing very well there as well. Right now, today, it's being used as a teaching and learning center, and our faculty are there getting all kinds of professional development between semesters. So it's very well used, and you're certainly invited to use it as well. Our major effort is on completion agenda. You can go to school, but if you don't finish, you don't have a credential. Credentials are key to promotion and for job hiring. And so I want to share with you that we had 988 graduates this year, and 79% of those were STEM. I'm sure you know what STEM means these days, which is science, technology, engineering, and math. And most of our students are going into those professions. And so we are already on track for getting 21st century jobs. We also had 448 certificates for GED. Only 100 of those students walked at the graduation, but this is the largest high school in the two-county area when you think about it that way. And so that's an area that we continually pay attention to. It's a good step up, and we try and recruit those students into post-secondary education. And finally, this was the first year for the Cabarrus Kannapolis Early College to graduate. And we had 83% of those students graduate with both a high school diploma and an associate's degree. And so we had a big party, and we invited the school board, the chairs, and the superintendents to be with us on the stage and to have that special celebration. So that's working very well, and I wanted to let you know how well that was working. Okay. This is a 10-year look at the college and how it's grown. Over 10 years, 59% increase. You can see 2 blips or more on here. The first one, the second bar, the third bar on the left is the Pilatex layoff. And you can see a big influx of students there. And then over to the right, you see 2009-10. This is the Great Recession. And as people use up their benefits, go back to work, use up their financial aid, get jobs, whatever the terminal point is, our enrollment will go back to what is more of a normal routine for us, but it's still 59% up in the last 10 years. Okay. This impact on Rowan and Cabarrus service area, many schools serve students who are not from there. We serve 97% of our students are from here, and we have 21,000 students going to school in our two-county area. And over the past 50 years, since this is our anniversary, we've served over 600,000 students. So we have parents of kids and, you know, second generation, same teacher. You know how that works when you've been here a while. So we have served 600,000 students, and most of those people have stayed. And when we did an economic impact on our effect, we see at the bottom bullet, is that $36 million is an additional estimated $36 million in taxable income to North Carolina's economy each year, because these students have gone to school, gotten jobs, gotten higher pay, and then that's what they contribute. So we're proud of that. We also want to make a point, and the fact that this is televised and might be seen again by the public, we really want to make this point. Which is, this is what the median earnings of educational attainment are in the Rowan Cabarrus service area. This data is specifically Rowan and Cabarrus data. And you can see that the high school, less than a high school graduate earns under $20,000, and a bachelor's degree earns about $42,000. associate and some college or associate's degree shows up at about $31,000, $32,000 of income. We think that's significant. It's something we ought to tell people. I think there's some people who are thinking we don't need to go to college, we don't need post-secondary education, but if you want to look at the earnings potential, that is clear, and it's clear for here. The next one talks about, the next slide talks about unemployment. Unemployment's not fair. If you have less than a high school diploma, your unemployment rate is over 21%. It's not this flat rate of 10.3 or whatever it is. It's over 21% in these two county areas. And if you have a bachelor's degree, it's less than 3. So it is not fair. The more education you have, the more money you're going to make, and the less likely you are to be unemployed. And that is our mission, and that's why we're here, and that's why we appreciate your support in helping us do what we need to do, which is help train people for good jobs, bring prosperity to the two-county area. So that's what we want to say to everybody. Our final slide sort of pulls these together, and you can see one line on top of the other that just makes the same point I already did, which is you need to get a degree. You need to get a degree certificate or some other job skill with a credential to make sure you're marketable in today's economy. It's not like it used to be 20 years ago. It's highly competitive. And Cabarrus is in the, is the bedroom community of Mecklenburg, and Mecklenburg's on a roll. They have recovered, and I think Cabarrus is going to go with it. So we work with them all the time in the region to try and get our job training and our courses aligned the same way so that we're able to train workforce for tomorrow's jobs. Okay. This is our funding picture, and I'm going to turn it over to Janet Spriggs, who is our Chief Financial Officer, and I'll also introduce at this time Jonathan Chamberlain, who is our Chief Facilities Officer, and we'll be taking questions in a minute as soon as we just go through these next 2 or 3 slides.
This slide shows the funding for our community college, and you can see from this that 89% of the funding that we receive is from state aid, and the county funding from Rowan and Cabarrus County makes up 5% and 4% of our operating funds annually, respectively. And then we get about 2% of our money from federal and local grants. As the economy has been in recession and has declined and is starting to grow, we have put more emphasis on federal and local grants and finding ways to supplement what we have not been getting and what we have needed from the state. So that's rising a little bit, but we generally are about at these ratios each year. This shows over 5 years a comparison of where our current operating appropriations have been. And as you can see, it's sort of backwards. We're starting on the left at 2012-13, and you can see that over that time we've increased 2% over the 5-year term. There was a little dip in 9-10 during the recession, but relatively flat at only 2% growth over that 5-year period in funding, while we have, as you just saw, been increasing greatly in the number of students that we are serving. And this is our budget presentation that you have already seen and that we went through at the beginning what we're asking for this year. We were asked by the Cabarrus County staff to provide the breakdown by campus. So we have our current operating split between our South Campus facility, our Cloverleaf facility, and CBTC. We are requesting, in our letter, we had requested a $43,575 increase, and that increase was to fund an increase in our lease for the Cloverleaf facility. At that time, we were in negotiations with our landlord to extend the term to 18 months, and we anticipated $3 per square foot increase, but we were able to negotiate with him for a better rate. For a 24-month lease, we were able to get $8 per square foot for the first year, $9 for the second. So really our increase for the lease will only be $21,787 this year. However, we do have other needs that we had not put into this request that we would like to be able to keep that additional money to cover. And those include mandatory health insurance benefit increases and retirement increases from last year and actually the year before, as well as what we anticipate for the coming year that we have not received increases from the county to cover. We have just covered out of our allotment. So, and we also have money that we need to put into an unemployment reserve for this year. This is new for us. It's part of the unemployment bill that was introduced earlier by the legislature to help recover and rescind the money back to the federal government that the state owes. So we also are asking for $213,000 in capital, and you can see the detail on what those items are at the different locations. And we would be happy to answer any questions that you have about these figures.
Yeah. We have a slide here called Looking Ahead, which will give you some preview of what we're talking about in the coming years, but I see we're out of time, but we can take questions or address any of the issues that you might have. And our final slide, if you'll go to it, is just our 50th anniversary slide, and we were just celebrating that. But if you'll go back to the third to last slide, the budget request, in case there are some questions.
Commissioners, do you have any questions? County Manager,
So,
you have any comments?
You asked for an additional $43,575, which is the anticipation of your lease or rent increasing, is that correct?
Yes.
Rent increase did not increase as much as you anticipated.
We were able to negotiate a better deal with our landlord, yes.
So it did not increase as much as you anticipated.
That's correct.
So that it actually is going to increase roughly 21,000. So there's a net difference of 22,000.
Net.
21,787, yes.
Okay. And you're just asking for that additional amount of money to cover some other operating expenses
That's
that
correct.
you can put the Band-Aid on.
That's
Well, it's part of the costs that are going to be paid out of the county allotment anyway.
Right.
And these are additional costs, even though we haven't gotten additional money for it. So
Right.
I think it would solve some other problems that we anticipate having.
Aside from that information, when we were in Raleigh last week, the budget looks as though it's going to hit Rowan Cabarrus Community College by $1 million. You're going to get $1 million less.
Correct.
Have you formulated a plan to deal with that potential?
I think it's $2 million less.
It's potentially from 1.3 to 2 million, depending on where they end up. The governor's budget was almost 2.1 million less for us, and the Senate budget is 1.3.
Okay.
So we're hoping we are closer to the Senate budget at this point, but we are working on our plans on how we deal with that. And the state dollars pay for the instructional and administrative side of the house, so they cannot be used for the things that the county money is used for. County funding is used to operate the facilities and maintain the campus and pay the custodial staff security and those kinds of operational and capital expenses.
That was what leads into my question is, if this 22,000 is being used for health insurance, isn't that outside of our responsibilities?
No, for the local funded employees, the employees that are
Okay.
maintenance staff and custodial staff and anyone working on the operational side of the house has to be paid for out of local funds.
So that's where,
Yes.
okay, I just want to make certain that we
Right.
follow the correct path.
Yes,
Okay.
and the benefits are mandated, even though they're funded through the local funding stream, we still have to pay the same retirement match and the same benefits match for those employees as well.
Okay.
It is permissible for the county to support the college greater than just facilities.
Right.
But it's not permissible for the state to support the facilities.
Right.
Except for the last 2 years, they've given us an option of putting some money into capital improvements, because if you don't have any space, you can't build new programs. So for a
Right.
period of time, there was the ability to do the reverse. So yes, the county can give us additional money. In fact, other counties many times give community colleges, support community colleges over and above the minimum, which is what frankly Cabarrus is doing.
Thank you.
How was the program at the sheriff's department?
Oh,
Yeah, 'cause
it's
I
wonderful.
Noticed it wasn't in the slides, so I just wondered.
Yep. They moved in, we had an open house, and from all reports, it's doing very well. They're really happy. Our program chair said this is the best place he's ever worked, so they really like it. I think we don't have, I think we maybe have a quarter of that space up there in that, 2 big classrooms. But it has allowed us to use that space from South Campus for other programming. So it's got a double benefit. They're in much better space, and it allows us to serve more students at the South Campus.
Right. What will be the implications of the state budget losing funding, you know, whether it be 1.3 million or 2.1 million, what would be the implications? Larger class sizes, not as many classes offered?
All of that.
Oh,
All
okay.
of that. We are, and we probably will look at some, ending some programs that we feel like are not as productive. So we might end up cutting programs. We're not there yet. We've got our budget meeting on Friday. The House comes in with its budget on Thursday. The House actually treats community colleges better than the Senate and the governor, but it's a dilemma,
Right.
frankly. We think that community college education is a great investment. And we have both the transfer well, we have many programs, as you know, but the transfer program and these high-tech programs and these career programs that we do with the high schools, all of them are worthy, all of them are important to the communities. And I think there's an attempt to cut government, period, and we're part of that. We are public education after all.
Correct.
There will be a tuition increase, by the way. I think it's $1 credit hour.
It was $1 in the governor's budget and $2.50 in the Senate budget.
Oh, great.
So
Okay.
is that, the tuition increase, is that part of what's going, okay.
We do not keep our tuition.
Right,
That's a
I
good question.
understand.
Thank you for it.
I know it's redistributed.
We collect it. I think we get to keep it a day, and it's sent immediately
Right.
to Raleigh, and it's redistributed like gasoline money is tax
Right.
money. So we don't keep it, even though it looks like we keep it, we don't keep it. And so, you know, the funding for community colleges is a little misleading because it shows that we keep this tuition. We do not.
But is the situation where if you are cut 2.1 million or 1.3 million, will the additional tuition cost close in that gap, or is that?
Well, the $1 and the $2.50 have a bigger gap ability. It will not fix it.
Right,
No.
it won't fix it, but we have, so it may not be 1.3 if the tuition is increased. It will help, but it won't cover.
It will help, but it won't
Okay.
cover.
If the
wasn't sure.
tuition is increased, it doesn't change that 1.3 million
Okay, 'cause-
cut, because it's receipts versus budget money.
Okay.
So it's a little different in North Carolina. The tuition increase, basically, our budget, part of our budget is predicated on how much as a system we earn in
Right.
receipts. So when they build the budget that cuts us 1.3 million, that has been accounted for in how much money they're going to put into the general
Okay.
fund
Okay.
to budget for us.
I know that we don't have much to do with that. I was just
We don't,
curious.
But I think it's important to know,
Right.
early college pays no tuition.
Right.
BLE, basic law enforcement, has a waiver. There are many ways that people can access education that don't show up in these receipts. And so when it comes time to look at the college's budget, there's no income there. These are arrangements that have been made other ways. So, but frankly, community colleges have always tried to meet the needs of the students. We don't have, like the universities do, where they say they're going to serve, for example, UNCC, 26,000 students, and that's it. You go away if you don't. We don't do that. We have an open door policy. Students earn their way in. They're mostly part-time. They're mostly older. They only have so much time to get their degree, and we do everything we can to enable that. So that has been the community college life since I started in the business years ago, before I even knew what a community college was, but that is something that we do very well. And so we're always stretched. Every time there's a recession, that's, you know, our enrollment tracks the unemployment rate. I can show you that on a different graph. And so it's not that we're doing great marketing to bring these numbers up. It's usually a reaction to the employment market. My first year I was here, and we had a 25% increase in enrollment, and I had my evaluation with the board. I said, I want you to know I do not take credit for this 25% increase in enrollment, because I'm not going to take the blame when it hits the other side either, because those people will go back to work. But we manage what is a fairly, I guess a very dynamic educational process. We are not paid for the summertime, and yet we offer courses in the summer self-supporting because we know that citizens need that education to complete their degrees, to go back to work. They can't sit there waiting for us to open shop in summer.
Right.
So that's what we do, and we appreciate your support in doing it, and thank you for the questions.
So what is your situation with the cosmetology program? I understood you were bursting at the seams,
Okay,
and so now you're there for 24 more months?
Yes. Well, you may want to speak to this. Let me do the shorthand first, which is, it's hard to negotiate when you're in the situation we were in. We knew for 10 years that this lease was coming due. We've been looking for over a year to find a different situation. But the truth is that wherever you go, you're going to have to renovate the project. And I think many of you know that we've talked to the city of Kannapolis, we've talked to the city of Concord, and Mike Downs has been a terrific resource for us, as well as his staff, in looking at options. What we did is buy time. We bought 24 months because whatever we do is going to take us a year to build it out anyway. So we have this period of time to both give the county some time to figure out what's possible and to figure out what upfit we can put into a lease and how long that lease needs to be so we can sustain it over time. So it's a difficult situation for us. The cosmetology program is very good. It has a 98% completion rate. You cannot match that anywhere. These are careers. This is entrepreneurship. This is 90 students in a very small space. We have another program in Rowan County that doesn't do nearly as well as that one. So it is the model for the state. So that one's very good. We have our other programs there are also doing very well. And these are good careers. They may not be what you consider 21st century jobs unless you're getting your hair done every week. And then it's definitely a 21st century job. But we also want to add some other degree programs in there. So we're looking at our whole planning process. So the slide you said that was a look ahead was really going to be an attempt to try and catch you up on cosmetology. So we are looking at another location. We're looking at, we already have done the homework on what's required, what our requirements are, how much it would cost to renovate, and we're still exploring with Mike and others ways that we can work it. We've had a meeting with the board chair and Commissioner White, and that was not a successful meeting in my opinion because it really, we were stuck. And these are important programs to this community. There's a lot of students who go through those that are able to become self-supporting. So we think it's a really important program. It doesn't fit on a campus particularly. We want it in a retail space, so we haven't planned for it to be on a campus. We decided after our meeting that we'd go to 28,000 square feet instead of 38,000 square feet. And we look at that other 10 going into Bilo or some other place, as you suggested. We think that would work. But we're still left with a 28,000 square foot need. And if you do the math that Jonathan does, he tells me that it's $100 a square foot. It's $2.8 million. That's a lot of money. So we're where we are as we negotiate and try and figure out what the future looks like. So that's where we are on Cloverleaf. We're looking at Kannapolis. We're talking to Castle and Cook. We're talking to the mayor. We're in Concord. We're talking to an investor. We continue to talk here. But we will need to make that change. We'll need to have a decision made in the next, I guess, year or so, 6 months if we could do it. So we'll be back, to talk to you about it.
And you said that were 300 full-time equivalents?
Yes.
That space?
Mm-hmm. And it's funded by the state as a campus. If you look at what our campuses look like here, notwithstanding north and south, and you look at Central Piedmont builds with their campuses, there's quite a bit of difference there in the facilities that are supported in that county versus this county. And in Rowan, they won't make a commitment to another place. Everything's on the campus. So there's all different kinds of dynamics, and it depends on what you want to invest. It's a big decision to make soon.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Who sets the tuition fee for the community college?
State legislature,
State does. Y'all have nothing to do with it.
not a thing.
Would it be different if you did?
Yes, sir.
Could you get us a list and by type of the locally funded positions that you have?
Sure.
Just so that we know what we're funding to match up with the benefits that that we should make sure that we are, that we're responsible for. We treat the K-12 institutions that way, that they have some locally funded positions, and we're aware of that, and we try to match what the state does. So that we need to make sure in our budget that if you have, whoever you have for locally funded, that we're aware of who those people are, and, I mean, not by name, obviously, but the category and how many are there, and maybe like a total dollar amount of those salaries, so that we can include that in our data and make sure we track it. Okay?
Certainly. I think it
And then, when you talked about the tuition, so you collect the tuition, you send it back. Do you know about what percentage of that tuition actually comes back for your staff, or, what the state funds? So you have 100% of your tuition. Do you get 80% back? Do you get 98% back? Do you get 60% back? And then what's the difference used for? Is that administration in Raleigh? Or is it XYZ Community College somewhere else that's in a poor county, because we're considered a wealthy county? Are you helping to subsidize another community college? I don't know what it's used for, if that makes sense. Can you
It does
get
make
some kind of a
sense.
breakdown for that?
Certainly. I'm not sure of the percentage. I think it's much lower than 60%. I would be in the 20 to 40% range, and I can certainly find that exact percentage. But the money goes back into the general fund. So all 58 community colleges collect the tuition, and we send it back to the system office, our state agency that governs all of the colleges. And that money, it actually doesn't technically go back into the general fund, but it's used as part of the budget that they then give to the system office to allocate to the colleges. So our money is allocated to us by the State Board of Community Colleges from the general legislature. So essentially, when they build the budget, they build it based on FTE and all of the calculations that they use to fund. We're funded by FTE, so each college is funded by how large they are in number of full-time equivalents. All of the tuition receipts come back into the entire pool of money to then be used to disperse as part of the budget for all state agencies, if that makes sense.
So the community college isn't funded that differently than the school system. The school system does not collect tuition,
Right.
but you're funded on a per-head basis, on an FTE basis. And I know you know this. And we are funded on a per-head basis, too. Our per-head basis changes every year depending on how much money there is, but the state universities are the highest funded per head, then the school board, school system, and we are the lowest funded per head. Even though we have higher qualifications necessary for our teachers, our programs are more expensive and all of that. We're a late entry into education, and so we have never had, the community colleges have never had the kind of money that either school systems have had or universities. We don't get the federal money that they had. We are, the state of North Carolina made the decision almost 50 years ago that they wanted accessible higher education and that they wanted that tuition to be low. Now that tuition has gone up, I'm trying to think what percent in the last 5 years. A lot, 50-something percent. Because when I got here, it was very, very inexpensive compared to where I came from, Florida. Very, very inexpensive to pay tuition. But it didn't matter to the community colleges because we don't keep it. And so we basically just collect it. And the philosophy is that we keep that tuition low. And that has been a North Carolina hallmark, frankly. And as long as the tax money and revenue is there to pay on a per FTE basis, it's not something we're going to change. And so it doesn't matter what it is. Last year was probably the first time we had a fight about tuition, because the state legislature was going to use tuition to fund general fund and not community colleges. So they were going to charge these students more money to go into the general fund. And so we said, if you're going to charge them more money, we want it to go to fill the hole in the community colleges. And we were able to sell that point. But then we did learn that, this money goes to general fund and you don't have a right to it. So we're surprised that that actually worked, but it did. But frankly, our students are not rich. Most of our students are on financial aid. And even with low tuition, they need that federal financial aid, which is about $5,700 a year. It goes very far. Our tuition's $1,400 a year. So you get that money to pay your books and other kinds of incidentals to stay in school. So we are a great value for the community and great value for North Carolina, and it is a one-size-fits-all. The state legislature decides what the tuition will be and many of the other rules that we work within.
I just find that to be quite interesting, that you're collecting money as a community college, and yet 80% of what you collect in tuition is not supporting the community college system. It's supporting other aspects of government.
And that percentage may not be correct.
Or whatever the number
We
is,
rarely
especially if
look
it's
at it that
something
way.
really low
Yeah.
like that. That's just amazing to me that that's how the system is set up. I've just never realized that.
As offensive as that is, the court system, all the money goes into the general fund, and then they cut back. You'd be shocked at how much money the court system makes for the state of North Carolina. And the SIFA, the forfeiture dockets, those money, instead of coming back directly to the school system, goes to the general fund, and then they apportion it out as they see fit. So that's not fair to Cabarrus County, which collects a higher forfeiture rate and vehicle forfeitures than other counties, but they get to share proportionally. We're a donor county for that.
I've got a question. Yeah, something you just mentioned. I'm sorry to hold us up. I know we're over time, but you said something about the federal financial aid. They get
$5,700 a year
and the tuition's only $1,400.
for the year.
And so, is that free money? Federal free financial?
It's a grant. It is free.
And so, what is the remaining money used?
It's used for books and transportation.
It depends. If it's a Pell Grant,
Yeah.
if it's a grant, then they can use it to
For
live
whatever.
off of, to help them because they're in school and not getting a job.
Yeah.
You know, you can also get loans that you do have to pay back it's based on your financial need, right? Pell Grants are based on financial need. So
That's right.
if you have the need, then you can get funds in addition to the tuition to cover expenses so that you can
Just sounds like
live.
that just sounds interesting that you can make money back. Just
You mean the person?
the person.
Yeah,
It's
but if
hard
you're
to live
living
on
off
that kind of money.
It's $5,700 a year, is
Yes.
that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, but, I mean, you can't live off $4,000 a year.
No.
I mean, it definitely helps, but it'd be hard to live off of.
See, the other thing I'd say is that
That
students
amount.
these days are, and you're a relatively new graduate, but books are incredibly expensive. They're more money than the tuition. So you've got another, $2,000 worth of books on top of that. So you don't get much, you don't get much at all.
Okay, are there any other questions? I mean, if you can send it to Megan and she can get it to us as far as the staff the locally paid staff, that would be greatly appreciated.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Okay, the next item we have is Kannapolis City Schools, and we will welcome the school board chair, Ms. Rickard, and you're always here, so we appreciate you coming.
Well, he's
Okay.
he's our spokesman today because Dr. Kane was not available to come after all. And I don't have anything prepared except to say, as always, we appreciate your listening to us and allowing us to present our needs. We don't get to present wants much anymore anywhere, but I know you've been provided ahead of time our budget request. I couldn't help but be interested in some of the things that you were talking about with Dr. Spalding and the courts and, things being taken from one entity and going to another entity. And when I realized the scholarship bill, otherwise known as vouchers, passed the Education Committee now, that could potentially be Cabarrus County tax money going to some parent in another county. I shouldn't even have brought that up because my blood pressure goes up. Anyway, you have our presentation. We're heavy on technology and trying to recoup some of the positions that, as you know, 2 years ago we had a reduction of force of about 118 people. We saw the writing on the wall and knew we were in a budget cliff. And this year we've also been hit with federal sequestration funds, our EC, Title I, Head Start, all those. So we'll have some deficits there. But
Can you said DC?
EC.
EC, okay.
Our Exceptional Children's Program, Title I programs, Head Start, those, anyway. But Mr. Crabtree can present particulars to you. I hope I'll be able to answer any questions if you have them. I may have to turn to Will. Dr. Kane is certainly more versed on class size and things like that, but turn it over to Will.
Did y'all want to, or you want me to?
Well, I was just going to remind them of what is currently in the budget that they received earlier. There's an increase in technology of $40,673, which was the Kannapolis fair share of the technology money that was also going to the Cabarrus County schools. And then you see the $929,000 that was capital one time in this fiscal year. That was one time, so it's not continuing. So that's showing a net decrease of $929,000.
Okay. I'm going to start off by talking about something that's not in the budget request, but just want to say thank you to all of you for your support of our school system, especially the one-time funding. That has allowed us to do so much this year. We just finished bidding the 2 control projects. They came in under budget. The technology funding you provided has just moved us leaps and bounds forward. The collaboration with the county technology department's been great. They've provided us a lot of help, provided things that we could not have done ourselves. QSCB funding, been giving you updates on that. That has just done wonders for our schools. I can't say enough about the shape that our schools are in. They're in great shape. Can't complain at all. This funding that we've received the last 2 years has just been amazing. I want to personally thank all of you for that. Now, to get to the budget request. Start off with capital outlay, and I divided capital outlay into different categories: technology, and I know technology funding that you're looking at doing that a different way this year as far as funding it through current expense. When I did the budget, I wasn't sure of that. That's why I left it in capital. So just wanted to clear that up. But technology, a lot of what we're doing are end user devices. The Dell WYSE P250 client devices are devices that were used for virtualization. That was one of the big areas that we were working with the county technology department, is to virtualize those devices. They're much cheaper than buying a traditional desktop, so we're able to get more bang for our buck when we use those devices. You'll see laptops, you'll see iPads. The wireless access points are just adding more wireless to our schools. iPads seem to be the wave of the future. We're actually doing some testing on iPads this year, some state testing. So I think that's probably where the state's going to move in the coming years. So we're trying to get ahead of the curve there. We have maintenance agreements and license agreements. Those are yearly agreements that we have to have. The Microsoft licenses are for the operating system, and the Aruba maintenance agreement licenses are for the wireless system. The bus cameras, we have 32 buses that we're operating with cameras. We have come to a point to where the cameras that we have existing are end of life. They are so old, in fact, that the company no longer makes bus cameras, so we're having a hard time even finding parts to fix them. So we are going to have to replace those, and they're very important for the safety of the students on the bus, because that's one job I could never have. I don't think I could ever drive a bus.
If I might interject, we have to be careful about confidentiality, but we had a discipline issue on a bus that the video camera was essential. And that's all I can say, but it was quite crucial.
But the bus driver, they have, they're having to concentrate on the road and the kids behind them, so those camera systems are a great thing. And then upgrade sound and lighting systems in the Kannapolis Performing Arts Center. About 7 years ago, I think it is, somewhere in that time frame, we renovated the Kannapolis Performing Arts Center and put in a new sound and lighting system. Well, as it's been used and it has technology changed, it's time to upgrade that. And I think that's the smart move, is to upgrade it now for a smaller amount of money. We spent over $700,000 on the sound and lighting system there. So I think $60,000 to upgrade it, instead of letting it deteriorate and having to start over again, is a better solution there. That's a total technology request of $426,334. Furniture is very little. We have been very good with furniture in our district as far as keeping it and setting a rotation schedule. So we're only minor $15,000 there. It's bookshelves and it's some cabinet and countertop work in the occupational course of study classroom at the high school. Equipment, 10 square scrubbing machines. This is custodial equipment. What this equipment would allow us to do, especially at A.L. Brown where you have 3 floors, is not use chemicals to strip and wax the floor. This is a dry system. So it's very helpful there where it's an older building, so you do have some holes and the chemicals tend to run down to the second floor, down to the first floor. So, and it's, from a safety standpoint and a green standpoint, it's allowing you to do it without chemicals. So it gives us a total capital outlay request of $471,334. I have provided a prioritized list to the county of the capital outlay items. On that list, I've also requested or added a request for a new school. Can't pass up this opportunity for that.
While Jay's still here.
So, we'd like to build a new intermediate school. We own the property, and by doing that, we'd have to renovate the current intermediate and add a couple of classroom wings onto the middle. But you all have heard it before. That's all the time I'm going to spend on it because the request's there. Moving to, current expense. Current expense is really up in the air right now, and I think you heard from the community college. I don't know what the state's going to do at this point. When we did this budget, the governor, this request, we were kind of operating off the governor's budget. So that's why you see a 1% pay increase and some other things. The Senate budget did not include a pay increase. It also did not include a negative reversion, but they made the cuts for you. So after this one or other. For us, the state cut's probably going to be 1.5, 1.6 million, either budget. It's going to be pretty close to that either way you go. So that's something that we're going to have to work around. Ms. Rickard mentioned sequestration on the federal side. So there are a lot of opportunities this year. I'll leave it at that. Class size, I'll address that here also because you'll see class size teachers. Under the governor's budget, there still were class size restrictions. Under the Senate budget, there are no class size restrictions. So here again, depending on which budget passes, we will have to have more, if there's still restrictions in place, we'll have to have more classroom teachers because our first grade is going to be a little high and going to be just a little over the cap if we don't. If there are no classroom size restrictions, we won't. Now, saying we won't doesn't mean it's not a good thing to do anyway. It's just that the requirement will not be there. When you add a teacher at K-1 for us, we provide teacher assistants for kindergarten and first grade classrooms. And while I'm on teacher assistants, I'll also mention that that's also a cut in both budgets, the governor's and the Senate budget. But 2 of the class size teachers we would be providing would require teacher assistance. So that's why you see that. The increase in retirement rate, it's probably going to go up. I think the Senate version was 14.63 or 65%, somewhere in that range. Insurance is also going to go up. I think the Senate version was $5,402 for every employee. When you start looking at benefits, and I'm not telling y'all anything, that cuts into your budget. That's a lot of money per person that you're having to dedicate to benefits. So our continuation, at least at the time we did it, was $247,403. I could not say, as we sit here today, that would be the same. So we're kind of in a wait-and-see mode with the state on that. I have provided some updated figures. I've provided a breakdown list of our local people and a total salary, and I've provided a total supplement and some of the benefits. So I'm trying to provide information as I can to how that will affect. But at this point in time, that's what we have.
And that information is at your desk that he's referring to about the local funded positions. We handed it out last night, but it's now been updated with equivalent information.
The expansion, I think it's always important to present your needs. While we realize it's been a down economy the last few years, I still think it's important to present your needs, because if you don't know what our needs are, how can you act? So our expansion needs are 3 health and physical education teachers. 2 of those would be at elementary schools, 1 would be at Kannapolis Intermediate. 2 academically and intellectually gifted teachers, 1 at elementary level, 1 at Kannapolis Middle. 1 family advocate, and a family advocate in our role is somewhat like a social worker. And that would be at the Kannapolis Intermediate School, but would also serve system-wide. 1 STEM teacher, science, technology, and engineering, math at Jackson Park Elementary, and 1 ACT English teacher at A.L. Brown, for a total expansion of $335,623. Once again, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to present our needs. Thank you for everything you've done for us in the past, and I'll open it up for questions.
Questions, commissioners?
You're talking about the TAs, and I have not seen any discussion from the Kannapolis City Schools system in regards to TAs. Has there been a decision made about whether or not y'all are going to give them a layoff notice or a temporary,
Laid off so many 2 years ago.
Right, and we're working through the budget as we speak.
Yes,
so
sir.
I mean, anything I say is subject to change. Let me put that out there. But as we sit today, no.
Okay.
We are not planning on doing that.
We
Now-
had so many 2 years ago that
Okay.
we ripped.
Now, my next
So-
question is, Senator Hartzell was saying in the paper, at least, is that there was not an allocation for the TAs, but the same amount of money was going to the school systems to fund it any way that y'all see fit.
From what I can understand from the Senate budget,
Mhm.
it was just a cut. Now, I have heard that the House budget may look somewhat like that,
Okay.
where it's a pool of money and you can choose to spend it where you choose fit.
Okay.
But that's the way I understand it. I could be completely wrong, but that's the way as I sit here today, how I understand it.
Now, if you can, let's see here. In regards to your capital outlay, I'm going to be referencing the first page is 22.
Okay?
You said that there was a request, you had a request of various laptops versus iPads. Why are you doing iPads in the middle and seems like the high school, if I'm correct? No, excuse me. You have some in the middle school and the elementary school.
Correct.
Versus laptops versus the WYSE.
Okay. The WYSE are mostly going to be in the labs that we have, so they would be replacing the traditional desktop computer in a lab format. So that's where those would go. The laptops, you see, predominantly will be for teachers, because they still need the laptop. It just has some functionality that an iPad doesn't for grading and other things. The iPads will be for students, because as we move into the future, we truly believe that that's the way, one, testing's going to go, and then two, textbooks are going to go, is to a tablet-based system.
Okay, now, when you're talking about laptops, I'm old school, so I'm thinking of window-based laptops. Are the laptop, is that what these laptops are, or are these laptops Apple-based products?
We're still a Windows-based system.
Okay.
We have a few Apple-based computers, but not very many. We're still very much a Windows, or a traditional computer.
Are the purchases of this technology equipment going to be working in conjunction with the county?
It is. I think if you were to ask the county technology department has reviewed this request and then agrees with it.
Price-wise as well as amount, or not cost, but the number?
Correct. Then the county actually are the ones who the county technology department are the ones who recommended doing the WYSE, the old client devices for the virtualization. And we have, I'm not involved in them as much anymore, but we have Tuesday morning meetings with them. Dr. Kane is in our technology department, where all these items are discussed, on a weekly basis.
Okay, now going to page 24, KPAC, Kannapolis
Yes.
Performance Art Center?
Kannapolis Performing Arts Center, the auditorium.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do others use it than just A.L. Brown?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Who all uses it?
The community uses it. It's booked
goodness.
almost year-round. Various different things, dance companies, concerts, churches rent it.
Was it like 200, 185, 200 and some days? We got a report just a few months ago, and I'm not good at remembering numbers, but it was a tremendous amount of time, really. And of course, there's a fee for that, and
I think they have benefit. I think the police department has their benefit scene there. Just various different
of course,
uses.
all of the county through the Arts Council, anytime they have all the county kids and so forth, that's usually there.
Now, in regards to the cost, does that go towards the maintenance of that building?
It does.
Supervision.
We put, in supervision. With a rental, we assign a custodian to that rental to keep, maintain the property. And there's a lot of maintenance with this equipment. Light bulbs go out, have to be changed, things like that. So we put pretty much, I'd say all of the revenue we receive from the rental back into the facility.
Now, the next page is the A.L. Brown countertops, cabinet, and stove. What's the age of that equipment that you're replacing, or wanting to replace?
Probably the 70s to 60s.
Okay.
Very, very old. It's in the original building.
Just don't go very
In the
old.
1950s building.
60s.
If you can go over to page 29, class sizes, you're talking about class size teachers.
Yes.
What's the number of teachers that you are anticipating with, if you can run down the number of teachers and the number of TAs that you're anticipating adding if you get this request?
3 teachers, one at Jackson Park, one at Shady Brook, one at Woodrow Wilson. And the one at Woodrow Wilson would not require a TA, so
Okay.
2 TAs, one at Jackson Park, one at Shady Brook. And those are all elementary schools.
Right. Thank you. That's all the questions I have.
On the virtualization computers you were talking about, which I don't totally understand, what are the cost savings in doing that as opposed to traditional desktops? Substantial?
They are. I think the Dell WYSE, whatever they're called, are about $300 to $400 a piece, and then a traditional desktop, you're talking $700 to $800 a piece, about half.
Right. And so the cooperation with the county IT department, do you feel like that has created some savings that
Oh, yeah.
might not have otherwise been aware of?
We couldn't have
or-
done it on our network without.
Yeah, it's been, we could have not have accomplished half of what we have accomplished without them. The technical expertise and staff alone is invaluable. It's been a great partnership for us. We're hoping to take that partnership further and collaborating on an additional position this year that would be funded through the county, but we would identify funding in our budget to pay for the person. It's just been great.
Plus, I think this next year, they're coming up with some kind of, we had schools that were opening before the techs came to work. And so Ms. McCombs, our technology director, I think, is the one that's in charge, but at any rate, they're working on a classification of problems. So if you've got a red hot problem, somebody from the county, might come and deal with that, whether it's just a minor glitch. It's just a prioritization of work orders, if you will. So that will help too, because we have kids that come to school at 7,
Right.
So.
Well, and just an editorial comment, and I'm sure there are others that have attended some of the Kannapolis Educational Foundation's functions where some of the children have demonstrated some of their skills on the iPads, and as I sit here struggling how to operate the one in front of me, it's amazing the things that they're able to do. So that's
It is.
pretty critical nowadays. And I will agree with Ms. Rickard on your comment about the age of the equipment.
Thank you,
A.L.
Ms.
Brown
Morris.
happens to be some of the equipment that I personally use there myself. So it's not that old at all, but I don't challenge that it might need to be replaced.
We call it's seasoned equipment.
Seasoned.
Thank
I like
you.
that much
There you
better.
go.
Thank you.
But in defense of A.L. Brown, we won some state award about it being the maintained and cleanest or whatever.
It just goes back to our buildings.
When you
and-
think
and,
about the age of that building, it's built in the 50s.
I know Mr. Wicky's sitting behind me, and I can't sing his praises enough either. Maintenance department agreement,
That's been
one of the
great.
best things we ever did. They do just a wonderful job maintaining our buildings.
I will personally say I was resistant to it at the time, just because of the way it was presented. That was many years ago, but it has definitely been worth the partnership. And it's very good.
Well, the first question I had, Pam had answered, and that was the priority list here, so I'm glad we got that. Going back to the discussion earlier with the sound and lighting system, whenever someone rents that facility or that, I guess the theater, is there someone that operates the lights and someone on your staff, or are they allowed to be able to use it however they want?
We require someone from our staff, or we also have a outside contractor who does it for us and charges us the same amount that we pay our staff.
Right.
So it has to be one or the other.
That's correct. Okay. And you said that, I remember you saying that it was just upfitted. When was that?
I don't remember the exact year, but it was mid-2000s.
Something
okay,
like
so
that.
it's
That's when we
been a little while.
redid the whole auditorium,
Right.
seating and all that.
Okay.
And,
I remember. But,
Where's Susan
I don't know. Mark Russell's the one that told me. We
Right.
definitely needed to fix something about it. I figure he would know because he does
Right.
so much there for us.
Okay, and the wireless access points, and you said that's just increasing the wireless accessibility in the schools. Is that so every school will have Wi-Fi in every area, or is that just certain areas? I'm not sure how it's set up now. If you
All of our schools have Wi-Fi now, but with the increased amount of iPads coming in, we just need to beef it up in some areas.
Okay.
So that's for.
I see.
Fred L doesn't have really good coverage anyway, do you? Can't get a cell phone there.
That's all I got.
So now that you know that technology has been separated out and we have your priorities list, you've got, I'm certain if it's on this slide, the amount that we're funding. You want me to have it right there.
Based on this funding, we get that $1 million
Oh, okay, where's that slide?
I thought it was mid-2000s. 2006 on the auditorium.
Where is that slide?
Well, I can tell you that on the priority list, you'll see past the new school, which is always going to be number one. The bus cameras would be our top priority. From a safety standpoint, that just has to be done. That being said, that's $90,000. So, and I think our share was $100,000. So that leaves us a whole lot of room left over after that.
You've got 130,177 is the indicated amount for technology. So, for the bus cameras, can you phase them in over a couple years so that you can address some of your other concerns with it?
We possibly could. Our problem right now is we just have so many failing. I don't think we could phase them in over more than 2. I'll put it that way. We might get 2. But.
So that's 45. You got 40,000 more right now for technology that you could.
The one thing with technology, the licenses are pretty much a have to.
You have to.
We have to do that.
So there's your 40.
That's also in there. We could look at that.
I mean, that's
sure.
just one idea and, or one way to address it. And now that you know that that's being broken out, then that'll help you as far as your budget process.
It will. Next year, we'll present it in a much different way.
Right. And then you have continuation for those 3 teachers and the 2 teacher assistants. That's if the class size, if the cap is left on the class sizes.
That's
so
correct.
if the cap isn't left on the class size, then the way that I understand it, it's a matter of you would have the opportunity to decide how to make things work.
It wouldn't be a legal requirement at that standpoint.
Right. So
Depends on how
if
high we
you
go.
added, a couple more in a lower grade or maybe a few more in an upper grade, then you can make things work because you don't have a cap that you're looking at.
Correct. I'm not going to say it'd be an
It just
ideal
depends
situation.
on how your kids are allocated.
Yeah.
You know that.
Well, I know they don't come in perfect little
No.
classroom sizes. So, that's all over the system. I mean, that's just normal. You don't have.
That's normal anyway.
And you can say you have an average of whatever the number is, and, you could still have a class that has, you might have an average of 25, for example, at your high school, but you're going to have an English class with 35 in it.
Exactly.
And you're going to have,
When you got this cohort, when they lowered the date, or back the date up or whatever for kindergarten, that group's just going to follow along every year.
yeah. Yeah, and that one year you have the bubble that keeps going through
It's
until
gonna
they
go
all
all over.
graduate. where
And that's
they,
everywhere
Yeah,
in the
that's,
state.
you're exactly right, that's everywhere. And then for the commissioner's benefit in your packet, I did ask for staff to copy the statute for you on what we are required to do. And based on this revised handout, I think it's important for the viewing population when this is televised, that we currently pay for 89 local positions at just over $5.5 million for staffing. And I know I've been told it over and over again over the years that the idea was that we were responsible for facilities and the state was responsible for staff. That's not the case. Because we provide 11 teacher assistants for you guys, according to this, 24.6 teachers. I don't know how you get a .6, but that's okay.
All funding.
Administration, you have 9 administration. Is that assistant principals? Is that?
Yeah, that's central office and
Oversight.
school-based.
Okay, so both central office and school-based.
Yes.
Okay. 41 clerical, and what is this technology skilled trades? What does that mean?
Our technicians that are our employees are funded locally. There's not a state allotment to fund those, so they have to be funded locally.
your instructional technology people?
No, our
or-
technicians, our actual
Fix it.
land engineer, WAN
Okay.
engineer, those
Repair
people like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're system people, not
They're
not
system, they're not
school-based.
instructional. Yeah.
They serve all of the schools and your administration building, any of those. Okay.
Correct.
And you had asked, I know you'd already asked a question. We typically do match whatever the state does on the pay increase and retirement and insurance for your locally paid staff members. I think those were my main questions, but we have made a point to pull out technology to make sure that technology does get funded. And I don't know if at some point we need to look at a definition of technology. It could be that, I don't know, that the cameras fall under technology, I presume then, based on how they are, so. Okay.
Could. Depends on how loosely you interpret technology.
That's true. Depends on how we interpret it. There you go. Any other questions for Kannapolis City Schools?
Not questions, but
Or
if we
comments?
use this capital outlay list that was given to us just a second ago, it is not matching up with the presentation, so they need to jive some at point in time. So as we make a decision, for instance, under the number 14 iPad cart with 25 iPads, Jackson Park Elementary, on the presentation is 16,000. On this capital outlay, it says 12. And then if you go down to number 2030 Dell WISE P250 client Forest Park, it's 20,000, and on the presentation it's 12. So we just need to make certain that the numbers are jiving.
Numbers.
I'll give
you
it Parth.
say?
We'll take care of it.
I just put those numbers in right before the presentation.
That-
so.
Yeah,
I just
I
wanna-
kind of, it's not, I got it to him late. so
No,
it's
I just
my
want to make
fault.
certain that whenever we decide, start making a decision and voting, that we're voting on the right numbers.
So which numbers are correct, the PowerPoint or the handout?
I don't have the numbers.
PowerPoint.
PowerPoint's correct, okay.
Mhm.
And we can easily get that updated for us for tomorrow. Okay. Any other questions? Last one, your growth, how many?
Our overall growth was up a little bit, and I think it did increase in Cabarrus, I want to say 20 students, somewhere in that range. Not a lot, but it was an increase.
From 4037 to 4064
4037,
to 4064.
That's more than I thought.
okay. So those are the increase in Cabarrus students. What percentage of your students live in Cabarrus County, and what percentage lives in Rowan County?
I can tell you in just a
Roughly.
second.
Used to be 1/4 and 3/4.
It's pretty close to that, but I think it's a little higher in
A little bit
Cabarrus
higher in
now.
Cabarrus now, I think, maybe 78, I don't know.
I think it's about 76, 77.
Okay.
Okay.
Still close to
76,
three.
77% of your students are in
Cabarrus.
Cabarrus County. And a
But
small,
I
so
think
very
we're a
small portions in.
smaller portion of Cabarrus County, though, because of Cabarrus County's growth, so.
Yeah, I don't have it with me. I can get it for you.
That's okay, it's just,
Specific.
because we fund two different school systems, a lot of things with our meetings, and I know the other commissioners will agree with me, we try to ask questions that we think, we may know the answers sometimes, and we try to ask questions so that when this is played on, Channel 22 or somebody else that maybe can't look at a big notebook or, those type of things, that they can, we're trying to anticipate maybe some questions that we would get, or that somebody at home is thinking, well, Kannapolis City Schools covers two counties, so I'm in Rowan County, but I get to watch it on TV, and what does that mean
Right.
for me? And, they hear the different conversations, so we try to pull out some information to make sure that we can share with people and educate as much as possible. This, it's a big budget, it's a big process that we have to go through, so the more we can educate everybody out there, the better off we would be. And, for example, when we talked yesterday, you guys weren't here, and Cabarrus County folks are here, so I won't repeat it for them. But we were looking at, at what point in time would we be able to afford a bond referendum? And, that's a huge discussion. that we have to look at. And of course, that's not going to happen unless the voters say that you have a need. Because
Correct.
if they don't think you have a need, that'll be the end of that discussion pretty quickly, and there won't be anything we can do about it, because that would be the only way that we can build that school that you need. So it's important to make sure that with this forum that we can educate the citizens in Cabarrus County so they can understand that you do have needs and how that translates.
I think that's especially important for people who don't have children or grandchildren in school, because often they don't, it's not that they're not interested, it's just they don't have access necessarily to that information. And I think it's certainly a good mark for this commission and for years past. You said, all these years we've thought the state provides, the personnel and the county provides facilities, because the state has not been holding up their end of that equation. And Cabarrus County certainly has risen, and provided a lot that ordinarily would be provided by the state. And it's because you care about kids, and we appreciate that. We really do.
And I don't know if we have your cohort numbers, but if you get a chance in the next little while to show, where you think your growth's hitting, which grades, and how your cohort numbers, to show that, for example, you've asked for the intermediate school, so where can we see that bubble? Because the kindergarten year bubble is moving through, I don't remember what grade it's in now.
I think it's like third, something like that.
I was going to say somewhere around second or third grade, if memory serves me right, but, that's coming along, and so you have to think about, you're going to get that bubble, and how are you managing it, and why is it that the intermediate school for you is a need?
And I can kind of address that real quick.
Sure, if you've got it.
For us, the pain is at the lower grades. The largest class size we have is kindergarten. The second largest class size we have is first grade. We anticipate next year the largest class size would be kindergarten, the second largest will be first grade, and the third largest will be second grade. So how the intermediate plays into all that is it would allow us to take the existing intermediate and make it an elementary school, thus relieving overcrowding in elementary school. But yeah, we see that the growth for us at least is very much in those lower grades.
Plus the advantage of our land being next to the middle school, you have that curricular advantage in that you have teachers, like encore teachers, like band or chorus or whatever, that you could share more easily, more readily without crosstown trips and so forth. There are just a lot of,
And Pam
educational advantages.
excuse me.
No.
Pam just told me that in 2012 it's 80% Cabarrus, 20% Rowan. So I was a little off. Thanks.
Close enough. Hey, any other questions? Okay, well, we really appreciate you coming and sharing with us today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. If you need anything else, let us know.
We will. Don't worry, we will.
I know you will.
We don't seem to have too much of a problem asking for things that we don't quite understand completely. At this time, Commissioners, we have on our agenda to take a short break. So let's start back at about 5:35. Yep, 12, 13-minute break, if you will. And next up, we'll have Cabarrus County Schools. So if you guys want to kind of get ready and figure out who's coming up here so that you're set to go when we get ready to go again. Thank you.